Hi everyone, welcome to the Underground. My name is Adam Beckley. So, the purpose of this channel is to cover over basics. Mainly it's for my students that I train with right now, some of them being in person. And if they can't come in, or if they need something as like a reference, this is what this channel is for. This is what this series is for. However, if someone comes across this out there that can benefit from it, great. So why the underground? It's because it's in my basement. If I move to a new location, then I'll have to come up with a different name, but I felt the underground was most appropriate for that case. What kind of content are we going to cover? It's not going to be high-level jiu-jitsu. I'm not necessarily focusing on anything that would be tournament related. It's going to be basics, raw basics. My jiu-jitsu, as far as how I interpret it, I like to try and keep it as a martial art first, and a defensive art first. And what do I mean by that? While some tournaments focus on the means of a rule setting, I try and incorporate my jiu-jitsu in such a way that if I'm in this position, what I want to be if someone was using their fists and punching at me, or hitting me, or striking me in some way. So I always try to think about my jiu-jitsu in that aspect. Like if I was in a street situation. And obviously our positions would change, and of course, well, if you're doing jiu-jitsu in a tournament setting, your jiu-jitsu is going to be different than if you were rolling in a street setting. Oftentimes we resort back to our basics. We're not going to do flashy stuff in self-defense. Hence why I'm so big on the basics. And that's what my focus is going to be in this YouTube channel, in this series. It's kind of like a house. You could have the nicest looking house in the world. You could have the top of the line curtains, top of the line furniture, top of the line bathroom, and entertainment system. That's movie theater quality, and everyone wants to come to that house because it's so fun to be there. But if a storm comes, heavy storm, and that house gets challenged, you keep your fingers crossed and you hope that the frame and the foundation will keep that house in place. In martial arts, and in all forms of martial arts, jiu-jitsu included, it's the basics you're going to resort back to, because it's the basics that we'd start with, and it's the basics at the end of the day that we're going to resort to when we need them the most, because they work. And they work surprisingly really well. I know there's going to be some people out there that disagree with me. They're going to be like, no, you don't know what you're talking about, Adam. I can see the comments now, and I'm going to understand it. If you disagree with me, that's fine. This is my interpretation. There's thousands of other interpretations out there on what jiu-jitsu is, from thousands of people. Some of them agree, and some of them disagree. I'm giving you just my interpretation. And if you get anything out of what I'm going to show, beautiful. And if you don't, and you find this is a waste of time, I'm sorry. And I hope that you do find something that is more beneficial for you. So that being said, we're going to be covering our first technique in this series, which is going to be the back mount position and applying the proper seatbelt. Where we're going to place the hands, how and why. A lot of what I do, by the way, you see my grappling dummy here? Call him Lieutenant Dan. Lieutenant Dan's going to be my partner for a lot of these videos. My wife would usually do stuff with me, but she doesn't like being on camera, and I respect that. So a lot of what you're going to see here is going to be done in a solo setting, using a grappling dummy. So those of you, if you don't have a grappling dummy, I highly recommend one. I think it's a pretty valuable tool to have, especially if you're in a situation where you're solo and you don't have someone at home to train with. If you don't have the means to buy a grappling dummy. I understand they can get pretty expensive depending on what you want to get for a brand. A hoodie with a couple pillows and a couple towels works great too. And if you don't even have that, a couch cushion. For this drill, you just need a couch cushion. That's really all you need. Or a backpack filled up with clothes. There's tons of things around our house that we can use for our training. And I'll try to incorporate that in this series too. So that way, the only thing that's really going to stop you from training is your imagination and excuses. So, without further ado, I'm going to give you our first technique. We'll see in a little bit. Okay, so to cover the back mount position, notice where my hooks are. My legs are kind of hooked on the inside, underneath the arms, on the inside of the legs here, in the upper part of the thighs. Okay, kind of help keep hip control. If my head is placed here in this case, I'm already kind of leaning for what I want for my seatbelt. Alright, so when I create my seatbelt, whatever side that my head's not on, chances are my shoulder, I'm kind of tilting a little bit, I'm leaning. I'm not straight on like this. Okay, I can do some stuff here, but I don't really have a lot of control. I want to make sure I have the maximum amount of control in this position. So I got to kind of contort my body a little bit. Kind of like what a snake does to its prey, like an anaconda might do. So I kind of bring my head here. Alright? So if my head's here on this side, this arm is going to go up and over, and I make a fist. Just like so. So the thumb part, boom, right here. Make sure your thumb is in for obvious reasons. You don't want to jam your thumb. The bottom hand here, I don't go over top. The only reason I would go over top like this is if the person was really, really big. Okay, like if their torso was really huge, then yes, I would recommend just bringing both arms over the top and holding the neck here. And kind of gripping your own arm. But in this case, that's not the case here. So in that case, this hand here is going to come underneath the arm. Okay? Comes underneath, and it grabs onto my wrist here. Not so much on the fist, but on the wrist here. And if you notice the grip I'm doing, okay, I'm doing what's called an ape grip. It's strong for pulling. If I was to do this grip here with my arm kind of looking like a C here, this is known as C clamp. This is better for pushing, but we're not worrying about pushing right now. We're more about pulling the grip into us. So this is going to make more sense, the ape grip in this case. So it's going to come right here along the wrist, and then I hide my eyes. And the reason why we want to click the bottom hand over top, because you might wonder, well, what's it matter? Why can't I just do this? Okay. Yeah, you can do it that way. There's just one problem. If he's defending, because eventually we're going to be getting into doing submissions. So if he, for instance, takes his arm and comes up over and clears it, this other arm's pinned. And I don't really have any control over him anymore. However, by having the bottom hand over top, if this top hand comes up and over again, and he peels away the top hand with this hand, I can still attack with a rear naked choke. And I still have some form of control by being able to attack him here. So even at a young age, when we're working this, and we're just beginning, it's good to make sure we get the good habit of having these grips down. So when we get into doing the techniques later on, we don't have to fix bad habits. Jiu-jitsu is hard enough without having to try and correct bad habits. So when I want to transition to the other side, I disengage, come to the other side, arm comes over, make the fist to the chest. Some people make the analogy like if you had a knife and you're stabbing it into them. If that works for you, then go for it. I come underneath the armpit, 8 grip, grab the wrist, squeeze tight. And then what you would do is you would just come back and forth, making it slow, smooth. Always check where your eyes are. Make sure you're hiding your eyes. The old excuse is like, well, no one would ever put me in a rear naked choke because I would gouge out their eyes. Here's the defense to that. You just hide your eyes. Because realistically, if they're frantic and they're trying to get out of this position in a street fight, they might try and go for your eyes. So we hide our eyes behind the head. We keep close. I don't want to be spaced away. Why? Because side view, he could headbutt me. Okay, but if I'm in close, he can't do that. So space is our enemy in this case. And we just go back and forth. Disengage. Come over. 1, 2. Disengage. 1, 2. Okay, and that's how you do the seatbelt on a grappling dummy. Just a basic drill that will lead to a lot of beautiful things later on.